Some people marry their future. I just kept mine as a backup plan. That's what she said. Right there, between the salmon tartare and the lemon risotto. Loud enough for the table to hear. Soft enough to pretend it wasn't meant for anyone specific. But it was meant for me. The napkin on my lap suddenly felt like an anchor. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I just stared at her, lips curved around her wine glass, eyes sparkling with the kind of freedom that doesn't belong at a table with your husband. They laughed. Her coworkers. That awful, drawn-out kind of laughter people force when they don't understand the joke but want to be close to the one who told it. I was invisible again. Or maybe I'd always been. I stood up. Not suddenly. Slowly. Deliberately. My chair made a sound, that awkward wooden scrape that always turns heads. She didn't even glance at me. I walked out. Left my coat. Left my dignity. Left whatever was left of us under a chandelier made of empty wine bottles. I don't remember the elevator ride. I don't remember the lobby. What I do remember is the air outside, thick, wet, summer air that stuck to my shirt and made me feel like I was dissolving. I walked 3 blocks before I realized my phone was vibrating in my pocket. Unknown number. I answered. I don't know why. The voice on the other end said, "Are you Elwood Rossner?" I froze. Yes, I replied. You might want to come to 24th and Baker. There's something here you should see. Click. That was it. No explanation. Just a cold, disembodied voice that somehow knew my name and my exact breaking point. I looked back toward the restaurant rooftop, barely visible now, and then toward the street ahead, empty, humming under flickering lamps. That was the moment it all changed. Not the dinner. Not the toast. Not the insult dressed up as a punchline. This. The call. The voice. The location. I went. I shouldn't have. But I did. And what I saw next didn't just confirm what I feared. It introduced me to something I wasn't ready for. A second life. Hers. The thing about 24th and Baker is that there's nothing there. No shops. No cafes. Just an old brick building with boarded-up windows and a bus stop that hasn't had a schedule posted in years. I knew the area, used to cut through there when I worked downtown, but I'd never noticed how dead it felt until I stood there that night, under a flickering streetlight, waiting for something to make sense. It was almost midnight. I checked my phone again. No new calls. No messages. Just that unknown number in my recent call log, sitting there like a trap I had willingly stepped into. I was about to turn around, maybe convince myself it was a prank, when I saw a shape step out of the shadows near the side alley. A man, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. He didn't look dangerous, more like someone who'd been watching for too long and finally decided to speak. "You Elwood?" he asked, as if he hadn't already confirmed it on the phone. "Yeah," I said, cautiously. My voice didn't even sound like mine anymore. I felt like a character in someone else's bad story. He didn't say another word. Just handed me a padded envelope and walked away, fast. Not suspicious, just like someone who had no intention of answering follow-up questions. I stood there a long time before opening it. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid of whatever truth was stuffed inside. Maybe I hoped it was all just nothing, a misunderstanding, a misdial, something unrelated to her. It wasn't. Inside were 3 things, a flash drive, a Polaroid photo, and a printed receipt. I looked at the photo first. It showed Marin. No question. Her hair pulled up, her red coat, the one I bought her for our 7th anniversary, and a man behind her. Dominic. That was his name. He worked with her. I remembered him from a conference 2 years ago, the one she insisted I skip because spouses just stand around awkwardly. They were in a hotel lobby. Not touching. Not kissing. But close. Familiar. Her face had that look, the one I hadn't seen in years. The soft smile. The laugh she used to save for private moments. I looked at the receipt next. It was for a 2-night stay at a boutique hotel downtown. Paid in cash. The name on the booking? M. Rossner. She used our last name. That was what hit me the hardest. Not the hotel. Not the man. But the fact that she kept my name on the paperwork like it was a prop. Like she was using it to get a better rate, or worse, because it made the lie feel realer to someone else. My hands were shaking when I looked at the flash drive. I didn't want to know what was on it, but I couldn't stop myself either. I went home. Quietly. Marin still wasn't back. The lights were off. Her perfume still hung in the hallway air. I sat in my office, shut the door, and slid the drive into my laptop. It was a video. 1 file. Timestamped 3 weeks ago. The screen lit up with footage from a hotel hallway, the same one from the Polaroid. Marin walks into frame, laughing. Then Dominic follows, carrying a bottle of wine. She presses the elevator button. They kiss. Not a quick one. The kind you don't do in public unless you've stopped caring who sees. I paused it there. I didn't need the rest. My stomach was already in my throat. My hands were clammy. I felt like the walls around me had all tilted sideways, and I was sliding off the planet. But then something else played. A second clip, a voice recording. I hadn't noticed it start, but I knew the voice. Hers. Honestly, Marin said, laughing softly, he's not even a person anymore. He's like furniture. I keep him around because he's too predictable to notice anything. Silence. Then Dominic's voice. You think he'll find out? Another laugh from her. If he ever grew a spine, maybe. But you've met him, Elwood's the safest man in the world. He'd apologize if I burned the house down. I sat there in the dark, not breathing, not moving. She wasn't just cheating. She was rehearsing my eulogy while I was still alive. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat in the living room, lights off, just listening to the distant hum of the fridge and the ticking of the clock on the wall, the one we bought at a flea market in Santa Fe. Every sound felt louder than it should have been, like the universe was mocking me with reminders of everything I had once believed was stable. I must have replayed that recording 20 times, not because I needed to hear it again. I already knew every word by heart, but because I was searching for something else in her voice. A hesitation. A moment of guilt. But there was none. Just effortless cruelty disguised as charm. The front door opened at 1:07 a.m. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. Marin stepped in quietly, as if silence could make her entrance innocent. I heard the soft rustle of her coat, the delicate clink of her keys landing in the ceramic bowl by the door, and then her footsteps stopped. She must have seen me sitting there. I was just a silhouette in the dark. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then she asked, in a tone so casual it could have been mistaken for boredom, "Why are you up?" I turned toward her slowly, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. She looked tired, like someone who had been laughing for hours and was finally coming down from it. I thought about the video, the kiss, the words, the receipt, the mockery. But I didn't ask where she'd been. I didn't need to. Instead, I said, "Do you remember the first time you told me you loved me?" She blinked. That caught her off guard. "What?" "It was raining," I continued. "We were in that diner off the interstate. You ordered blueberry pancakes, and I was still trying to impress you, so I ordered kale and acted like it was good. You laughed when I gagged on the second bite. Then you looked at me, serious all of a sudden, and said, 'I think I love you.' Just like that. No build-up. No warning." She stood frozen in the doorway, arms still wrapped in her coat like a shield. I stared at her for a long moment before adding, "I remember exactly how you said it. The tone. The look on your face. I don't think I've ever seen you more genuine." Marin's lips parted like she wanted to speak, but nothing came out. Then I stood, calm, quiet, and I walked right past her. I didn't touch her, didn't brush against her, just moved through the same space, like she was a stranger I was avoiding on the sidewalk. I went into our bedroom, shut the door behind me, and locked it. Not to keep her out, but to keep whatever was left of me in. I didn't cry. I didn't scream into a pillow. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the closet, at her shoes lined up perfectly, at the perfume bottle on her dresser. And for the first time, I realized something terrifying. I didn't miss her. I missed the version of me who thought she loved me. The next morning, she was gone by the time I got up. No note. No text. No, sorry about last night. The house smelled like her shampoo, but it felt hollow. I walked into the kitchen and saw that she'd left her laptop on the counter, charger half plugged in, screen still glowing faintly. Curiosity didn't drive me. Neither did revenge. I wasn't looking for more proof. I just needed to know what kind of person she had to become to say those things about me. I opened it. The desktop was organized. Of course it was. Folders labeled by year. Subfolders for presentations, campaigns, holiday photos. But there was one folder that stood out, unmarked, sitting in the middle of everything. Just a black icon. No name. I clicked it. Inside were dozens of videos, each one labeled with dates, locations, some in hotels, some in our house. She'd been recording things, conversations, encounters, intimate moments that had nothing to do with me. But one video was titled with my name. I hovered the cursor over it, paused, then clicked. And what I saw in that video was worse than the affair, worse than the words. Because it wasn't her being cruel. It was me. And I had no memory of what I said. I don't know what I expected when I clicked the video with my name on it. Maybe something petty. Maybe her filming me asleep, drooling, or doing something embarrassing, a little trophy of how pathetic I was. But the moment the screen came to life and I saw myself sitting at our kitchen table, everything in me pulled back like I'd stepped into a cold shower with my clothes on. There I was, wearing a flannel I still own, hunched over a mug of coffee, lips moving slowly. The timestamp said 5:42 a.m. I don't remember that morning. I don't remember that conversation. But there I was, speaking in a low, even tone. And she was recording me. Not secretly. No. The camera was placed on the countertop like I'd agreed to it. I was looking straight at it. I'm tired, I said in the video. But not the kind of tired you fix with sleep. It's like my skin doesn't fit anymore. I watch my digital self rub his forehead like the words physically hurt. I don't think she loves me, I said. I think she loves that I don't fight back. That I let her be whoever she wants to be, even when it makes me feel like a ghost in my own house. The camera was steady, silent. Then I said something that turned my stomach inside out. I think if I disappeared tomorrow, she wouldn't call the cops. She'd just put my stuff in boxes and tell people I left a note. There was a pause. A long one. Then, off-screen, Marin's voice replied, calm and composed. Good. Say it just like that again. But slower this time. What followed was silence. Then me, the version of me I didn't remember, repeating the sentence, word for word, slower. Like I was reading a script I'd helped write. I slammed the laptop shut. My heart was pounding. Not out of anger. Not even sadness. It was confusion. Deep, brain-numbing confusion. I didn't remember that video. I didn't remember saying any of it. And the worst part? It sounded exactly like something I would say. I walked into the bathroom, turned on the sink, and stared at myself in the mirror. Not because I wanted to cry. I just needed to see if I still looked real. If the face in front of me matched the voice in that video. It did, which made it worse. Later that day, I got another call. Same unknown number. I picked up without hesitation this time. Check the brown envelope in your mailbox, the voice said. It's time you saw the ending. Click. I rushed to the mailbox like a madman. Looked around the street. Empty. Not a car. Not a neighbor. Nothing out of place. But there it was. A plain brown envelope, no postage, no writing, sealed shut. Inside was a photograph. This time it was Marin. Not in a hotel. Not kissing anyone. But in a meeting room. Sitting across from a man in a tailored suit. Her body leaned forward. Her smile too rehearsed. Her eyes sharp, watching his hands as he slid a folder across the table. Taped to the back of the photo was a sticky note. 2 words. Power of attorney. My spine stiffened. I went numb again, not like before, when the shock had been emotional. This was different. It felt legal, premeditated, dangerous. I rushed inside, dug through our filing cabinet, and flipped through the drawer labeled Life Docs, Marriage License, Wills, Tax Returns. And then, there it was. A signed form. With my signature. My real signature. Dated 6 weeks ago. It granted Marin full control over our joint assets in case of medical absence or mental incapacity. I had no memory of signing it. None. I checked the witness signature. It was someone I didn't recognize. Looked like a coworker of hers. Not mine. My mouth went dry. My brain tried to come up with rational explanations. Maybe I signed it after that stomach flu. Maybe I thought it was a refinance form, but nothing added up. She hadn't told me about this. And if she had, she never mentioned it again. And suddenly, the video of me talking at the kitchen table? It made sense. She'd been building something. Not just an affair. A case. I didn't leave the house for the rest of that day. Not for food. Not for air. I moved through the rooms like a stranger in my own life, touching things I'd once found comfort in, and wondering if any of them still belonged to me. Marin's coffee mug sat in the sink with a lipstick print she hadn't bothered to rinse off. Her planner was half open on the dining table, scribbled with color-coded meetings and a reminder to pick up wine. I stared at that reminder for a full minute. It was underlined twice. I wondered if the wine was for me, or him, or someone I didn't even know existed yet. I couldn't sit still. My skin itched with the kind of unease that has no clear direction. It's like being hunted by a predator that isn't running, just waiting. That envelope. The fake signature. The video. The fact that I didn't even recognize myself in my own words. It was no longer about betrayal. It was about construction, the deliberate, quiet assembly of something meant to take me down without ever leaving fingerprints. By noon, I was back at her laptop. I tried logging into her cloud account, something I hadn't dared attempt the night before. To my surprise, she hadn't changed the password since the day I helped her create it 4 years ago. It was still the name of her childhood cat and the year we got married. I wish I could say that meant something, that some part of her still felt anchored to us. But after everything I'd seen, it felt more like laziness. Like she hadn't even needed to hide anything properly because she believed I'd never go looking. Once inside, I scrolled through the folders. Most were work-related: slide decks, drafts, client presentations, things I didn't have the energy to care about. But one folder, buried beneath a pile of business documents, was marked with a single dash. Just. I clicked it. It was locked. Of course it was. Encrypted, password protected. I tried guessing. Her birthday. Our anniversary. Her mother's maiden name. Nothing worked. Then I remembered something. Last year, we had an argument, one of the few big ones we ever had. She accused me of not listening, said I never remembered details that mattered to her. In frustration, I'd said, "Name one thing I've ever forgotten that was actually important." And she'd replied coldly, "You forgot the name of my first boyfriend. The one I told you about on our second date. The one who broke me." At the time, I rolled my eyes. But now, sitting there, I typed his name. Called her. The folder opened instantly. My stomach dropped. My fingers went cold. Because inside weren't just documents. There were recordings, photos, letters, and something else, a draft email. Never sent, but saved. Subject line, contingency plan, in case Elwood snaps. I clicked it. My breath shallow, my mouth dry. It was a full message, addressed to her lawyer. "Hi, Laura. Just logging this here for peace of mind. Elwood's been acting strange lately. Withdrawn. Saying odd things at random times. I've started recording some of his comments, attaching a few of them below. I'm concerned. If anything happens, I'll need full access to our joint accounts and property. Let's ensure the power of attorney is ironclad. I've also included a medical draft in case we need a statement from Dr. Fielder about his episodes last year. Thanks for always being ready to help me move things along quietly. I read it twice. 3 times. It hit me like a train. Not only had she been recording me, she'd been preparing to make me look unstable, mentally compromised. She'd been collecting clips, nudging them into a narrative, curating a version of me that didn't even exist. Or maybe did. That was the worst part. The not knowing. The fact that I'd started questioning my own memory made it easier for her to create the illusion. I opened the attachments. They were short clips, 10, 20 seconds each. In each one, I looked tired, fuzzy, saying things I didn't remember, rambling in one, silent and staring in another. But none of them showed aggression. None showed me threatening her, or even raising my voice. Just detachment. That hollow look people get when they've stopped trying to understand something that keeps hurting them. There was also a PDF labeled Psych Eval Draft. Not signed, not official, but prepared. It had my name, my age, my reported symptoms, which she had listed herself: fatigue, paranoia, memory gaps, periods of dissociation. I don't know how long I stared at it, but when I finally looked away, I saw my reflection in the dark screen. And for a moment, I believed her. I actually thought, what if she's right? What if I really am losing it? And that's when I realized the true danger. Because the moment you start doubting your own reality, you're no longer a threat. You're a puppet. And someone else is holding the strings. The next morning was too quiet. There's a particular kind of silence that fills a house when someone's already decided you don't belong in it anymore. Not the peaceful kind. The sort that feels like you're breathing in someone else's air. I hadn't heard from Marin since the night of the dinner. No texts. No calls. Just digital footprints and ghosts in the cloud. I stood at the kitchen sink, letting the water run for no reason, staring out the window like answers might be written in the trees. That's when my phone lit up. Cecily. Her younger sister. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 years. She lived on the West Coast, worked in nonprofit advocacy, always had an edge to her, a little too blunt, a little too observant. Marin once said, Cecily never learned to keep things polite, which was a polite way of saying her sister was the only person in the family who could see through her. The message was short. Call me. I know what she's doing. My fingers hesitated over the screen. I didn't want to bring anyone else into this. But something in the wording, what she's doing, not what she did, told me Cecily wasn't talking about the affair. I called her. She picked up instantly. No hello. No small talk. Did she give you anything to sign in the last 3 months? She asked. My throat tightened. Yeah, don't say what it was. Just listen to me. Her voice was tense. She tried something like this before. On someone else. I froze. What do you mean, someone else? Cecily exhaled slowly, like she'd been waiting years to say what came next. You ever wonder why her college fiancé disappeared? The one her family never talks about? I didn't respond. Because the truth was, I had. His name was Miles. I'd only ever seen one photo of him, stuck in an old album, and Marin had once casually said he left her because she was too driven. That was the extent of the story. A closed door I'd never opened. He didn't leave her, Cecily said. He checked himself into a hospital 6 weeks after she caught him cheating. My heart pounded. What kind of hospital? A psychiatric one. Marin made sure he was evaluated. Told everyone he'd become paranoid. She told me he was talking about conspiracies, that he thought she was drugging him. I leaned against the kitchen counter. The floor felt like it was moving. But here's what you don't know, Cecily continued. Before he was committed, he sent me a package. I was just a teenager then, and I didn't understand what it meant. But I kept it. And when I heard about what happened at that dinner, I had a feeling. What was in the package? She didn't answer right away. I'm overnighting it to you. You need to see it for yourself. Cecily, I said, my voice unsteady, just tell me. What was in it? Her reply was quiet. 2 voice recordings. A journal entry. And a copy of a financial document with Marin's signature, one he claimed he never signed. She was trying to prove he was unstable and siphon money from his trust fund. He didn't even know she had access. But she had forged medical notes, just like the ones you found. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My pulse was a drum line. She's done this before, Elwood, Cecily whispered. The pattern's too similar. And I think she's doing it again. Only this time, she had more time to make it perfect. I sat down slowly, like my legs no longer trusted the ground beneath them. All the pieces were falling into place, and none of them were shaped like the truth I had lived in for nearly a decade. It had never been about Dominic, or some fleeting physical betrayal. It was about control, about narrative, about writing someone else's ending while they were still mid-sentence. And worst of all, I had helped her. I'd signed things. Let her film me. Let her talk over me and around me, and, eventually, for me. That afternoon, Cecily's package arrived. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for hours. Because something inside me knew, once I heard what Miles had left behind, I wouldn't just be confronting Marin. I'd be confronting the part of myself that stayed quiet every time she reshaped the story. I waited until the sun went down before I opened it. The package from Cecily. It had sat on the table like a live wire, humming with things I wasn't ready to feel yet. For a moment, I imagined what would happen if I just threw it away, if I decided not to know. But that's the thing about knowledge. Once it's within reach, ignorance doesn't offer comfort anymore. Just cowardice. Inside were 3 items, neatly packed. A small black USB, a crumpled photocopy of what looked like a medical release form, and 4 handwritten pages, aged, corners bent, ink faded. The journal pages were dated exactly 11 years ago, just over a year before Marin and I met. And they were written by someone who knew her the way I thought I did. His name was signed at the bottom. Miles B. Carter. I started with the journal pages. The handwriting was uneven, tense, like each word had been squeezed out under pressure. He wrote about how Marin was watching him sleep, and how she'd started asking him odd questions during meals. Not about the relationship, but about his thoughts, his memories. If he ever felt confused, if he remembered dreams clearly. She told him he was talking in his sleep, things he didn't recall. She claimed he'd blacked out during arguments. He began to wonder if she was right. One line hit me so hard I had to stop reading. The worst part isn't that I think I'm losing my mind. It's that I'm starting to believe she wants me to. I replayed that line in my head again and again. Not just because it was heartbreaking, but because I recognized it. Not in words I'd said aloud, but in how I'd started feeling over the past few months. The hesitations. The fog. The way I doubted my own instincts every time she made me feel like I was overreacting. Marin didn't just cheat. She dismantled belief. Quietly. Systematically. I plugged in the USB. There were 2 audio files, both marked with dates. The first was just under 5 minutes long. Miles' voice filled the room. He was speaking softly, maybe into a recorder on his desk. I'm leaving this because I don't think anyone will believe me if I say it out loud, he began. She's rewriting things. Conversations. Timelines. She'll mention something I supposedly said, but I have no memory of it. She's been telling her friends I'm distant. Paranoid. I think she's setting the stage. His voice cracked, not with fear, but shame. I keep telling myself I can't be crazy if I know I'm asking that question. But she's good. She's careful. And I think she's done this before. He paused. She told me once, early on, that she hated being the victim in stories. That if she couldn't control what happened to her, she'd at least control how it was told. That was when I stopped the recording. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The dinner. The wine glass toast. The recordings. The unsigned email labeled contingency plan. She hadn't just been documenting my decline, she was authoring it. She was writing a narrative where I became a man unraveling under the weight of his own paranoia. A man who couldn't be trusted. A man who didn't even notice he was being erased. And then, the second recording. Miles again, this time more urgent. She forged a document. I'm sure of it. I've got the original copy of my financial agreement. Hers has a second clause added. It gives her power of attorney if I'm ruled mentally unfit. She tried to get my doctor to sign a statement. He refused. Then, she changed clinics. Found someone else. The recording cut out halfway. Abrupt. Like it had been stopped mid-sentence. I sat there in the dark, my laptop screen glowing in front of me, and suddenly I understood what Cecily meant when she said this wasn't new. I'd walked into a role. The same role Miles had. And now I was inches away from the same ending. Only one thing was different. Cecily. She had given me what Miles never had, a spotlight before the curtain closed. She gave me time. The next day, I printed out everything. The forged medical draft. The audio transcriptions. The original power of attorney that didn't match the signed one in our files. And I took them to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My old friend, Harrison. Former paralegal. Now a litigation consultant. We met in a park. I handed him the folder. I didn't explain much. Just said, I think she's trying to make me disappear without touching me. He flipped through the documents, one by one, his brows knitting tighter with every page. When he was done, he looked at me and said, Elwood, you need to disappear first. I stared at him. What do you mean? Before she pulls the trigger on this plan, you walk away. Quietly. With the originals. You get your story told, your truth, before she tells hers. Because the second she decides you're no longer useful, this all becomes part of your breakdown. Not her manipulation. He was right. I went home. And she was already packing a bag. Smiling. She didn't expect me to be calm. That much was obvious by the way she turned when I walked in. A mix of fake surprise and preloaded concern that would have played better if I hadn't already seen the rehearsal. Marin was zipping up a weekender bag, dressed in what she called her retreat clothes. White sweater, gray scarf, just enough dishevelment to look spiritual. She'd always been good at looking like a woman in transition. But this time, the audience had already changed. Elwood, she said softly, her eyes scanning me like she wasn't sure what version of me she was speaking to. You're home early. I didn't answer. I simply placed the manila envelope on the table between us. She glanced at it. Didn't touch it. Didn't ask. I know what you're doing, I said. Calm. Steady. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she straightened her shoulders like a chess player calculating her next 5 moves. I don't know what you think you found. Don't, I said. Not loud. Just enough to stop her. Don't twist this. Not this time. She looked at me then. Truly looked. And for the first time, I saw something flicker, not guilt, not even fear, but recognition. She knew I wasn't guessing anymore. I wasn't asking for answers. I had them. All of them. I turned, walked down the hall, and grabbed my packed bag from the bedroom. I'd already moved most of the essentials earlier that morning. Documents. Personal files. A copy of the flash drive Cecily gave me. I left the laptop open on the bed with a single message typed out on the screen. You're very good at writing people out of your story. But this time, I wrote the ending. She didn't follow me out. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to say. Or maybe she thought she could still spin it to someone else. I didn't care. I got in the car. Started driving. No destination. Just distance. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just watched the rearview mirror as the house disappeared behind me, smaller, quieter, meaningless. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I've moved to a different state. A small coastal town where people don't ask many questions and nobody knows Marin Rossner or the man she almost erased. I got a job consulting for a local environmental group. I rent a tiny cabin 5 minutes from the water. There's a coffee shop down the street where they remember my name after just one visit. Some mornings, I walk the shoreline before sunrise. It's quiet, But it's the kind of quiet you choose, not the kind forced on you by someone else's control. Cecily and I talk once a week now. She told me she finally confronted her parents about Marin. Turns out, they always suspected something about her, but they let it slide. Family dynamics are funny that way. She's coming to visit next month. Said she wants to bring the old journals and burn them on the beach. Not out of anger, but as a way to say, that chapter's over. I'm not healed yet. That's not how this works. But I'm better. Some nights, I still think about the man I used to be, the one who sat silently at that dinner table, hearing a sentence that changed everything. The one who thought silence was strength. Who believed patience was love. But I'm not him anymore. I'm Elwood. I know who I am now. And I'm finally living a life where no one else gets to write the ending but me.